It's 2024 and I've only just finished Dexter. There's been somewhat of a resurgence recently for Dexter, thanks to viral clips, TikTok edits, and of course its availability on Netflix. That's where I've watched it, despite the fact it was originally on Sky. People are intrigued by the show, and I mean, I can understand why. Dexter's a pretty cool guy, as well as the fact that he's complicated, and it's an interesting concept for a show, so it's drawn a lot of people in. I do just want to say though, some of the stuff I see on TikTok, look, it's a bit much, I'm not going to lie. There are people dressing like Dexter, doing the voice. Look, you're not Dexter, bro. Just give it up. I'm going to briefly talk about a few of my favourite seasons of this show in chronological order. If you don't want any spoilers, that's fine. I've got a video talking about the spin-off, watch that instead. Or watch any of my Game of Thrones videos, you know. Whatever you do, just watch one of my videos. Cheers for that. Also remember to like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. So let's start with season 1. This is obviously where we get introduced to Dexter. It is my completely valid opinion that season 1 and 2 are by far the best seasons of the show. It's not even close for me, and if you disagree, you are just wrong. And yes, I'm including season 4 in that mix as well. This season is actually an adaptation of the darkly dreaming Dexter book. I hadn't heard of this at the time, but it sounds kind of girl boss. I am actually quite interested in reading the book. I might do that for a video at some point. I don't know how long it is, but it will be interesting to see how it differs to the first season. I know it's the only season of the show which relates to the book at all, pretty much. What I like about season 1 so much is the narrative structure behind it. We are introduced to Dexter and we really don't know anything about him. All we know is he's ginger, he's tanned, and he kills people. So there's at least 2 things that aren't adding up there. The way we learn about him is actually really interesting because he doesn't remember a lot of his trauma, and a lot of memories are revealed to him by the antagonist of the season, Brian, or as Dexter says, Biney.
Biney.
You always had trouble saying Brian.
I'm sorry, the scene where he says Biney always makes me laugh. It's just because he's a fully grown man, but I mean, I understand why he says it, I just find it funny. Basically, Dexter has a lot of unresolved trauma, and it's quite a realistic depiction of mental health that he has sort of buried a lot of his memories deep into the corner of his subconscious mind. A little Freudian, but I do like that they add this in, and it's quite it adds an interesting bit of depth to Dexter as well, because he says he's emotionless throughout the series, but as we can see, he is emotional. He does have normal responses, and if anything, they're quite masculine responses to emotions. He doesn't discover them until his long-lost brother, who also happens to be a serial killer, leaves him clues to investigate. Now this is how you tell a story. This helps Dexter discover his own memories, revealing to the audience that Dexter's violent urges are because he saw his mum brutally murdered when he was only 3 years old. As they say multiple times in the show, he was born in blood. His brother also witnessed these murders, but Dexter's adoptive dad, Harry, didn't want a damaged teenager, which when you actually think about it is really messed up. I don't know how he got away with only adopting one and putting the other in care, which would have traumatized the child even further. But I mean, it gives the villain a motive in the season, we'll say that at least. Dexter's adoptive sister as well, Deborah, she is a massive part in season 1 and throughout the whole show, to be fair. I really don't think her actor gets the flowers she deserves. She has so many great performances throughout the seasons, and I'm surprised she didn't get anything bigger. Again, I really do like her performances, and I'd actually go as far to say she's one of the best actors on the show. But again, she never gets the respect she deserves. I think partially because the writers do attach her to men quite a lot, which in this first season it makes sense. She's kind of desperate for a boyfriend. She wants some male attention. It's sort of done realistically, to be fair, and that's why she gets engaged to the ice truck killer, or Biney, who is obviously hiding his identity. And yes, he is Dexter's brother, and Deborah is Dexter's sister. We've watched Game of Thrones, we know how the Targaryens do it, it's nothing too strange, at least they're not blood related. Brian asks Dexter to kill Deborah, Dexter's like, nah, Dexter kills Brian, end of season. Absolute cinema. Season 1 was a really solid foundation, and Season 2 capitalised on this in a big way. Big characters were introduced. Lundy, and Lundy In all seriousness, though, I just love this man. He's so good. I don't even blame Deborah for falling under him. He's just class. We also get introduced to Lila, or as Deborah calls her.
Nobody is pale in Miami. She's obviously a vampire. A gross English titty vampire.
You just described the perfect woman.
Lila is actually quite useful this season. I know people think she's kind of just a sex object or whatever, but she does help Dexter open up quite a lot, and she does give his character depth. Also, I do like their love triangle in the story with her, Deborah, and Dexter. Deborah? Obviously, I mean Rita, not Deborah. Although, we do get there eventually, don't worry. The second season is so intense. This is what the final season of the show should have been like. If anything, it almost feels like they jumped the gun on this season, and that's the only issue I have with it. Both Lundy and Dokes are focused on investigating the Bay Harbor butcher. Dokes is more so focused on Dexter, and he doesn't know it. And there's sort of a feeling that Lundy knows that Dexter's done it, which again is a really sort of interesting idea and a bit of a conspiracy theory amongst the fan base. And Dexter's really struggling to keep his secret. He even goes to the lengths of saying he's a drug addict to explain all his behaviours to his girlfriend. This is one of those seasons of TV that build anxiety up so well. It's just class. It has been said a million times, but the rivalry between Dokes and Dexter is really well performed. Again, every scene with them together is so tense. The actor for Dokes is incredible. The actor for Dexter is incredible, and their chemistry on set, it goes together like peas and gravy. And I don't even like peas. Again, if this was the final season of the show, it probably, unironically, would be my favourite season. But the fact that they jumped the gun on it a bit early, it does affect it a little bit. I was surprised at the start of the season when they reveal that the Bay Harbor butcher is being investigated. But look, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It just leaves the show in a difficult place going forward. And in my opinion, it's sort of a little bit responsible for why season 3 just didn't hit the right spot for me at the time. Dexter's identity was protected, so they can't reopen that plotline again for the next few seasons. Season 3 would leave out 3 massive characters. Of course, Special Agent Lundy, Sergeant Dokes, and Lila. They were all missing, and the replacements, it's really not good. Season 3, in my opinion, is by far the worst season. I wouldn't go as far to say it's one of the worst seasons of TV I've watched, but for a season of Dexter, you can tell something just went wrong in the writing room. It feels weird. It drags horrifically. The characters they introduce, oh my. The Skinner is pathetic. I think he was called the Skinner. What a pathetic character. They have this random woman who I don't even know what she was. They introduced Joey, who I do like in future seasons, but this season he is so dry and he's not a good replacement for Dokes at all. It's not like for like. Deborah has a new boyfriend because the show needs to give her a boyfriend. Honestly, her learning to be single would have been a better storyline for her, but I don't write the show, I guess. And don't get me started on Miguel. I mean, I do find him a little bit funny at times, but his whole storyline just doesn't feel relevant to the whole plot of Dexter. I don't see why he's such a big part of the season. It almost feels like he's the main villain, and it doesn't make sense to me. He's a really weird character, and the storyline for the season, it doesn't make sense to me. There are only 2 things worth discussing with the season. They said that stain would come out.
Not at all. They said that stain would come out. Fuck you.
Honestly, that is one of the best Dexter moments ever. Just Dexter go.
Not at all. They said that stain would come out.
I love it so much. And also,
9 holes tomorrow?
I do have a bit of a controversial opinion coming now. A lot of people think season 4 of the show is the best. I just don't agree. I definitely put it up there in probably the top 3, but it just isn't that for me. John Lithgow is good, like insanely good as the Trinity Killer. He's kind of weird, but also he's so menacing, and for an old man, he has a real physical presence. Like, I don't know what it is about him. Maybe it's the height. But when I look at him, I just feel like he could murder me and there's nothing I'd be able to do to stop him. That sounds a bit dark now that I've actually said that out loud. But he also is clearly quite mentally troubled. And his storyline throughout the season, the things we learn about him are really interesting. His family, the fact that Dexter actually seeks to learn from him. And of course, the fact that he's probably the most successful serial killer to ever exist, at least in the world of Dexter. He's a really interesting character, and the actor, I mean, I love that he did this. He just performed so well in the role. There's nothing else I can say. His character is enhanced by the return of Lundy, and look, everyone knows how I feel about Lundy. Great character. Another thing I like about the season is that Dexter struggles more with his double life. He's now married and he actually lives with Rita. He also has a baby now, so in short, he has no sleep, no privacy, and certainly no time to go and just kill people. This isn't some sort of miracle antidote to his condition, though. He still has his compulsions, and it's a really interesting plot throughout the season. You know, things happen like he leaves the children at the camp alone to go hunt for humans, basically. That sounds a bit weird when I say it like that, but that's what he does. He also crashes his car because of sleep deprivation. There are a lot of things that make sense throughout the season because, look, Dexter just doesn't have the time. What does frustrate me later in the show is that they completely ignore this factor of his life. They also start to ignore the fact that he has to go to work. But, look, I do understand it's hard to write about Dexter being busy. It's not that interesting for the plot. But Harrison's babysitter just becomes his mother. It's a little ridiculous. The season finale is one of the biggest in the whole show. Spoiler alert, but Rita, Dexter's wife and the mother of his child, is actually murdered by the Trinity Killer. And it's a great irony because Dexter's already killed the Trinity Killer at the time that he figures out that Rita's dead. So he can't get revenge in the way he traditionally would, and he just sort of has to deal with it, and it's almost like he's been bested. The whole scene is executed incredibly. The build-up, the speech about the moon beforehand, the performance, and look, the directors did an incredible job here. The whole scene, it's heartbreaking. It's one of the best twists in the show, and again, kind of like what happens at the end of season 2, it does leave the show in a bit of a difficult place because they don't really know where to pick up from it. It sort of clears up Dexter's work life for the next season, so because he gets time off work. One thing I do want to say before we move on to talk about the next few seasons is that the camera work in these early few seasons is really cool. They have some peep show-esque angles, and I love when they do this. It feels really experimental, but in a goofy way, and it really matches Dexter's personality as sort of this serious killer guy, but you know, sometimes he's just a bit of a goofy guy. I'm going to summarise the next 4 seasons a bit more quickly because, look, the quality drop-off is insane. It's like when Pokemon upgraded to 3D. It just was never the same. Season 5. The Alpha Woman from 10 Things I Hate About You. Her and Dexter kill people. Dead season. 0 out of 10. Still better than season 3 though, I'll give it that. Season 6, they have this religious guy. He's related to Tom Hanks. He's not got a friend in me. I'm not too keen on him. Dexter learns that religion exists, doesn't really do anything with it. That's all that happens all season. 4 out of 10. I kind of like the villain this season a little bit. Season 7, Deborah finds out Dexter's a serial killer. Season 7's actually a bit of a return to form for me. I'm not too keen on the start of a season where Deborah finds out Dexter's a serial killer. It should be an interesting plot line, but it just doesn't really work well for me. He does mess up her life quite a lot. A bit weird that she fancies him. She admits to being in love with Dexter, which... okay. I'm just going to move past that, even though we shouldn't. What I do like about this season is LaGuerta being on to Dexter. She kind of outsmarts him, and Deborah has this big decision. Does she kill Dexter or does she kill LaGuerta? And again, this is a really interesting plot point. Deborah picks Dexter. She's messed up for the rest of her life. Also, Hannah's in this season. I actually do like Hannah's character and her relationship with Dexter. I kind of knew it was coming, but I thought it would be cringe. It actually wasn't too bad. I didn't mind their relationship. So, you know what? This season's not terrible. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. One thing that I do want to mention is that they seem to have a guest star every season. I know this is like a 2010s TV show, but it just, I don't like that. It is a bit goofy, you know, having the woman from 10 Things I Hate About You, the guy from Star Wars. I know they're going to have characters that move in and out of the show, but I mean, come on, it feels a little... that sort of thing hasn't aged well for me. Season 8, oh my, where to start with Season 8? So, Season 8, Dexter, he has like a story arc where he learns more about himself. He learns why he's a serial killer again, even though we've gone through that. He questions the code because he meets this woman called Vogel, who is sort of like a psychologist, I guess, for serial killers. And she actually apparently created the code with Dexter's dad. Again, this is kind of stupid. Her son is a serial killer as well, because everyone in Miami is a serial killer apparently. And again, the season drags. It's not too interesting. She's confused as to why Dexter's more emotional than he should be. I don't care, just end the season. Honestly, 2 episodes before the season ended, I remember turning around to my girlfriend and saying, how are they going to end this show? Because they were not in a position to end it at all. And oh my, is it abrupt. The season finale, they fumbled it. It is terrible. It is so bad. I can't even fathom how they fucked it up so bad. Deborah's death is done like it's a Holby City death. It's just silly. Basically, she gets shot because Dexter decides not to do his own dirty work, which again doesn't make sense for his character. Feels a bit silly. Gets Deborah killed. But it's not the shot that kills her. She's fine after the shot. So she's rushed to hospital. It's teased that she's died in the penultimate episode. And then in the finale, we see her and she's completely fine. She has one last conversation with Dexter. He leaves. He comes back. And oh no, she's had a blood clot. And she's dead. Or at least brain dead. And Dexter has to put her down because, I mean, it's only kind. Which, look, I understand these things happen in real life. But in the TV show, really? It just doesn't feel like a fair end to her character. And in my opinion, they didn't really do her justice. I do really feel bad for her. She deserved better. I mean, the actor just deserved better throughout the whole show, to be honest. The writing behind her was awful a lot of the time, especially the last few seasons. Again, did she have to fancy Dexter? Was that needed in the script? Honestly. So Dexter leaves his son with Hannah. They go to Argentina. Dexter says he's going to go to Argentina, but decides he's better off not being in their lives. He goes into a hurricane, I assume to try and kill himself. They don't really make it clear what his motives are. And then the last shot we see of him, he's alive. Everyone assumes he's dead, but he's alive in some sort of snowy part of America. I'm assuming Alaska. I've seen the Simpsons movie. That's the only snowy part of America I know. Okay. This ending to the show wouldn't have been too bad if it was flushed out a bit better. I don't like the ending shot where he does the Twilight thing, but instead of closing his eyes and opening them, he just sort of opens them a bit more. It's, again, a bit goofy. I get Dexter's a bit goofy, but come on. He looks at the camera at the end of a season. Really? They leave it in a bit of a weird place for the spin-off, but I've just finished the spin-off. If this video does well, I'll make a video about that as well. I'm quite interested to talk about that. So, I mean, that's the overview of the whole show. Again, the early seasons, really good. The ending seasons, not even worth talking about or spending my time on, but I have. So, I really enjoyed the show. I just wish they ended it earlier. I think if it was 5 seasons maybe, and that season 2 was the last season, then it would have worked really well. And my perfect ending for Dexter... he gets caught and he gets the death penalty. Honestly. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you've liked the video, leave a like, subscribe. Check out my link tree. I've created one. It only took me like 10 minutes, but a lot of effort for my videos. So, I've written a script for this. I've edited it. I've not edited it yet, but I've written it. So again, I've gone to a lot of effort for making this video. Hopefully I get at least 10 views. I'd really love that. So subscribe, leave a like, and I'd really appreciate all of that. Thank you for watching and getting this far. Cheers.
Bingo! 9 holes tomorrow?